I was halfway through making coffee when my phone buzzed. A message from Claire, someone I hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade. All it said was, "Hannah, is this real?" Below was a link to a GoFundMe campaign. The title hit like a car crash. "In loving memory of Hannah Lee, help us honor her legacy." My thumb hovered over the link. Then I tapped. There it was, my name, my face, my obituary. They used my college graduation photo, the one where I was smiling because I thought life might finally be fair. The page was flooded with comments. "She was so bright, so kind, gone too soon. My prayers are with the Lee family." And at the top, $40,328 raised of a $45,000 goal. Organizer, Margaret Lee, my mother. The description told a full story. Hannah Lee, beloved daughter and sister, died last year in a car accident overseas. They claimed my remains had been cremated, that I always wanted a simple memorial. There was even a poem. Something generic and soft and cruelly fake. I leaned against the fridge, suddenly cold all over. I wasn't dead. I was right there, breathing, shaking, alive. And yet, in their world, I was already buried. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of sick mistake. Maybe a cruel prank, a wrong name. But the photos? The timeline? No. This was intentional. This was them. I clicked the Updates tab. Margaret had posted 5 times over the past 6 months, updates on how the money would go toward creating a scholarship in my name. Hannah's Light, she called it. My brother Ethan had even written a message. "She always gave without asking. Now we give in her honor." I nearly dropped the phone. This wasn't mourning. This wasn't grief. This was marketing. They didn't just erase me, they monetized my absence. I scrolled back to the top of the page. There, in bold black font, it read, "Forever in our hearts, but never far from home." A bitter laugh escaped me. They had no idea how close to home I really was, because I was alive. And now, I wasn't just going to haunt them, I was going to come back. It didn't start with the funeral. It started with $15,000 and a lie. 3 years ago, Ethan, my younger brother, was halfway through college and failing almost everything. He told my parents he'd been hacked, that someone drained his tuition account. He cried, trembled, played the victim so well, even I believed him, for a second. Then I checked the records. The charges weren't from hackers. They were from poker websites. Sports betting apps, one after another. When I brought the evidence to my parents, thinking I was helping, thinking they'd want the truth, I got silence, then fury, not at Ethan, at me. "Do you want to ruin his life?" "He made a mistake. You're blowing this out of proportion. You've always been jealous of how much attention he gets." That last one came from my mother, but the one that cut deepest was what she said the night she packed up my boxes. "Better one ruined child than 2. My father didn't say a word. He stood by the door with his hands in his pockets, like he'd already decided I didn't belong in the house I helped pay for. I didn't take everything with me. I left behind framed pictures, high school trophies, and a handwritten letter I once gave my mom on her birthday. None of it mattered. The next morning, I was gone. Not by choice, not exactly. I left because staying meant surrendering to a version of myself that only existed in their shadow. And for the longest time, I thought they'd eventually call. That maybe, just maybe, someone would ask for the truth. But no one did. No phone calls, no apologies. Just silence. A silence so long it started to feel like grief. But now I understood. They weren't grieving. They were rewriting. And I had been cast as the girl who vanished, conveniently dead, conveniently gone. So they could move on. So they could start over. So they could profit from the sister who once tried to protect her brother and got erased for it. I didn't disappear overnight. Disappearing takes time. It starts with switching your phone to silent, then turning it off. then throwing it in a drawer and pretending it doesn't buzz anymore. I moved 3 states away, rented a room above a bookstore where no one knew my name, worked nights at a diner and days at a thrift shop. No social media, no trace. I paid in cash when I could, lived small, ate simply. I told myself I was starting fresh, that maybe this was freedom. But freedom doesn't always feel like fresh air. Sometimes it feels like dust in your throat. There were nights I stared at the ceiling and asked myself if I was overreacting. If maybe I should have stayed, if maybe I had exaggerated. But the voice that always answered was quiet and honest. They didn't fight for you, not once. So I stayed gone. For 3 years, I watched my life fade from memory. I stopped being Hannah and started being the girl with the green apron, or Unit 4B. And even then, a part of me still clung to something childlike, a belief that family might heal in silence, that time, distance, maybe even guilt would lead them back to me. But the GoFundMe changed that. It wasn't just that they moved on, it was how they did it. They didn't just let go. They filled the hole I left with praise, with poetry, with profit. They turned my absence into a campaign, into a cause. And now the world. My old classmates, our church community, even my childhood piano teacher, they all thought I was dead, because that's what they were told. That I died, that I left a legacy, that I was generous, graceful, gone. But I wasn't gone. I was just inconvenient. And for them, dead was easier than difficult. I thought being erased would feel louder. But it began quietly. I tried to reset an old email tied to my student loans, something I hadn't touched in years. Instead of a code, I got a message. Account deactivated due to a report of user decease. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Then I logged into Facebook. My profile had been memorialized. Banner at the top, remembering Hannah Lee. There were comments, candles, prayers. One post from a high school classmate. You were always the one who smiled at everyone. I hadn't died, but someone had decided I should be remembered. Still calm, still skeptical, I logged into my DMV account. I needed to renew my license, just another errand. But the screen froze, then flashed red. Error. Record flagged as deceased. Contact vital records. That's when the cold reached my spine. I called. The clerk was polite. Until she checked my file. Ms. Lee, we have your record as deceased. Cause of death, vehicular incident. Filed in Bonner County, Idaho. Idaho. My family owned an old cabin there. Quiet, remote, easy to lie from. I requested a copy of the death certificate. It came 2 days later. A real document. Watermarked, sealed, signed. Name, Hannah Lee. Date of death, July 16th. Cause, car accident overseas, unrecovered body. Filed by Margaret Lee. Mother. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, lights off, certificate glowing under the stove light. The signature was unmistakable. My mother's. The woman who once braided my hair before Sunday school. She had filed my death like a tax form. Clean, neat, efficient. No hospital records, no funeral notice in the papers. Just a forged line on a quiet form in a small county. It wasn't just betrayal, it was paperwork. And it was accepted. Not because it was true, but because no one thought to question it. I looked down at the embossed seal, perfect and final. And in that moment I realized, this wasn't mourning, it was manufacturing. They didn't just bury me, they filed me away. They weren't done. I thought the fake obituary was the end of it. The final insult sealed in government ink. But then I checked the GoFundMe again. A new update had been posted 2 days earlier. We're proud to announce the launch of the Hannah Lee Memorial Scholarship. The money, over $40,000, was now being used to fund an annual award at my old high school. Margaret wrote, "She always believed in lifting others up. Now her spirit will help others rise." And there was even a ceremony scheduled, this Saturday, auditorium, open to the public, speakers listed, Margaret Lee, Ethan Lee, the school principal, and one student who'd been selected as the first recipient of Hannah's Light. I stared at the screen, numb. Then I clicked the comment section. So beautiful. She would have loved this. At least her death meant something. That was the one that broke me. I hadn't meant nothing when I was alive. I worked 2 jobs to help pay our mortgage. I gave up grad school to keep Ethan from failing out. I stayed quiet while they dismantled me. And now, they were turning my silence into virtue, my absence into legacy. They used my name like a brand, sold my death like a cause, and made themselves the heroes of a tragedy they wrote. No more. I closed the laptop. This wasn't grief, it was theater, and if they wanted a performance, I'd give them one. I started with what I had. An expired passport with stamps from cities no obituary ever mentioned. Lease agreements signed in ink, not memory. Tax filings, pay stubs, photos with timestamps, GPS data, proof that I existed, not as a ghost, but as a woman working quietly to survive. Then I dug deeper. Screenshots of the memorial page, bank records linked to the GoFundMe, the death certificate, forged and filed, and finally, a screenshot of a text Margaret sent me just 6 months ago. If you ever come back, you'll ruin everything. That was the one I printed twice. I packed the folder tight and made an appointment through a nonprofit that helped with identity theft. The receptionist didn't ask many questions. 2 days later, I sat across from a man named Mr. Finch, a lawyer who'd seen scams, lies, and family betrayals before. But not like this. He flipped through the documents in silence, his brow tightening with every page. When he got to the death certificate, he let out a breath. You're challenging your own death. Yes. This could go federal. It should. He looked up. Why now? I leaned forward, calm, controlled. Because I'm not going to stay buried. And I'm not doing this just to be alive again. I want the world to know what they did. He nodded slowly, then smiled, a rare, dangerous kind of smile. Then let's bring you back to life, officially. By the end of the day, we filed a fraud complaint and a motion to revoke the certificate, but this wasn't just legal paperwork anymore. It was the opening line of a story I was finally ready to tell. In my voice. On my terms. They had erased me. Now I was writing myself back in. The sky was pale gray that morning. Fitting, I thought, the kind of color that doesn't commit to storm or sun. I stood across the street from the auditorium. From where I was, I could see the banners strung across the front doors. In loving memory, the Hannah Lee Memorial Scholarship Ceremony. People filtered in slowly. Parents, students, faculty, all dressed in black. Some held flowers. Others printed programs. Inside, they were lighting candles. I knew that space well. I'd sung in that auditorium, spoken at graduations, cleaned the floors for extra credit. Now they were using it to bury me all over again. I waited until the last person went in before crossing. I kept my coat buttoned, folder tucked close to my ribs, my steps steady, breath measured. Heart? Not calm, but focused. The usher at the entrance glanced at me, gave a small nod, didn't ask for a name. I slipped into the back row just as the music started. Soft, slow piano. The kind played at memorials where no one wants to be the first to cry. Margaret took the stage first. She wore black lace, pearls, and practiced sorrow. Her voice trembled just enough to seem human. Hannah was our first light. Her memory guides us still. I looked at the crowd. Not one of them knew the truth. Not yet. But they would, because I wasn't here to be seen. I was here to be remembered. For real this time. And when the moment of silence came, I would break it. I didn't need to read the program. I'd already seen the script. Margaret still in pearls. Ethan still pretending grief weighed more than guilt. But this time, I wasn't watching from the back row. This time, I walked. The banner above the stage read, "The First Annual Hannah Lee Memorial Scholarship." Margaret stood at the podium, pearls around her neck, eyes already misty. Hannah was more than a daughter. She was light. She was grace. Her absence is a wound that will never fully heal. Applause. Soft. Polite. Ethan followed, stiff in his blazer, holding a folded piece of paper like it weighed more than he could carry. She always believed in second chances, in helping others. This scholarship, it's what she would have wanted. I stood at the back of the room, black coat, folder in hand, invisible, until I wasn't. The principal stepped up and asked for a moment of silence. The lights dimmed, heads bowed, and I walked. One step, then another. The echo of my boots on the hardwood floor broke through the hush like a slow drumbeat. Click, click, click. Gasps. A few people turned, then more. Phones lifted. Whispers bloomed. Margaret's eyes locked onto mine and widened. She stumbled back, one hand flying to her chest. Ethan's mouth hung open, paper slipping from his fingers. Is that? No, it can't be. She's dead. She's not. I climbed the steps, didn't look at them, just took the mic. I heard I died, but I'm here to correct the story. The room held its breath. I opened the folder, pulled out copies of my lease, pay stubs, passport stamps, legal filings. One by one, I held them up. I've been alive this whole time. While they told you I was gone, they used my name, my story, my silence. I turned to face my mother. You filed my death. You signed a lie and built a shrine from it. Then to Ethan. You spoke about honor, while spending the money people gave to mourn me. A murmur rippled through the audience. Cameras blinked red, and I let it sit. You didn't lose me. You erased me. But now, I'm back. I placed the documents down, clean, precise. Then stepped back from the mic. The silence was heavier than any applause. Margaret sat frozen. Ethan looked pale, like the ghost they thought I was. And I stood in the spotlight, the girl they buried, back from the dead. The video hit 100,000 views by midnight. I didn't post it. Someone in the audience did. Just 10 minutes of footage, no edits, no voiceovers, just the truth. The caption read, "The girl they buried came back. By morning, GoFundMe had frozen the account. Comments were locked. Funds under investigation. A local reporter requested an interview. I said no. Margaret issued a clarification statement on Facebook. We were misinformed. There was confusion, a tragic misunderstanding. No one bought it. The post was flooded with comments. You filed her death. How do you misunderstand a funeral? By the end of the day, the post was gone. So was her account. Ethan texted me that night. You were never supposed to come back. I stared at the message, then deleted it without typing a word. No reply, no explanation, no more noise. I didn't need revenge. This was enough. My death certificate was torn in half across a lawyer's desk. 2 signatures, 1 stamp. That's all it took to bring me back. Legally, I existed again. But emotionally, I had already begun long before that. I didn't go back to my old town. Didn't visit the house I once cleaned every Sunday. Didn't return to the church where they held my memorial. Some ghosts aren't meant to haunt. Some are meant to leave. I moved to a quieter city. Took a job with a nonprofit that helps people reclaim stolen identities. I taught workshops. Sat with strangers who had once been erased like I was. One day, after a seminar, a girl lingered near the door, maybe 18. Shaky voice, wide eyes. You're Hannah Lee, right? Your story saved my life. I didn't know what to say, so I smiled, gently. No, you saved your own. I just showed up. I walk more now, take photos again, let myself laugh when something's funny. Not just when it's polite. And when people ask about my family, I say nothing. Not because I'm hiding, but because some names no longer live inside me. They buried me for convenience, but I returned by choice, and I'll never let them write my ending again. This isn't just a story about being declared dead. It's about reclaiming your voice when the world decides you're easier to forget. If you've ever felt erased, you're not alone. Leave a comment or just write, "Still here."